It's a new edition of the Bigfoot Journal, your twice-monthly Bigfoot news update. What happened and what's ahead in Bigfoot research and news, only on the Untold Radio Network. The Bigfoot Journal is now. With your host, Mike Luci.
All right, all systems go. Cue that music. What's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in to episode 16 of the Bigfoot Journal, your twice monthly review of what happened and what's ahead in the Bigfoot world. If it's your first time watching, here's how this works. We sweep the internet twice a month, highlight the top Bigfoot reports and news stories, and share our findings in a fast-paced 30-minute time frame. Here are this episode's top stories. Most scientists agree that humans crossed the Bering Land Bridge to reach North America. But what about Sasquatch, or its potential ancestors, like Gigantopithecus? Our lead story covers a groundbreaking discovery about the Bering Land Bridge that might make you second guess how Bigfoot could have made this journey. Oregon law enforcement is cracking down on a law that prohibits hunters from using thermal imaging devices. We're breaking down what this law says, along with some potential ways Oregon squatchers can keep therming out in the field safely and legally. And this episode's report roundup is looking at an alleged trail camera photo that's making rounds, plus a recent trackway that was found in western New York. We've got all this and much more, so ready or not, we've got to get rolling. Episode 16 starts now.
Bigfoot and Science is now.
As most of you probably know, it's widely believed that modern humans first crossed into North America via the Bering Land Bridge. And many Bigfoot researchers think this also might explain how these creatures, or their potential ancestors, like Gigantopithecus, reached the continent. However, in regards to Gigantopithecus, most scientists largely reject this idea. In addition to no fossil evidence of them being found in places like North China or Siberia, at least not yet, skeptics also point out how the Bering Land Bridge was most likely a tundra landscape, whereas Gigantopithecus likely preferred dense forested habitats. Well, our lead story will examine one recent study whose findings seem to indicate that the Bering Land Bridge terrain was much different than previously thought, so we'll look at that and examine how this discovery could shape the Bigfoot migration theory. So before the glaciers receded around 11,000-ish years ago, the Bering Land Bridge was largely believed to have been a vast migration corridor that connected North America and Asia. Scientists thought it consisted of arid plains with short grass, along with moss, lichens, and shrubs. However, new research seems to show that large sections of the land bridge were actually covered by bogs, floodplains, and waterways, indicating it might have had more of a swampy, marshy type terrain. Back in August 2023, scientists took samples from the Bering Sea shelf in an attempt to reconstruct the land bridge's vegetation and climate conditions to see what they looked like. The research was conducted on an oceanographic vessel called the Cyclook, which is operated by researchers from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Titled The Bering Land Bridge During the Last Glacial Stage, Great Grazing or Buggy Bogs, the team's findings were presented at the American Geophysical Union's 2024 meeting. The researchers used sonar to identify low-lying regions in the former land bridge and gathered samples from 36 different sites that were hundreds of feet underwater. The researchers found traces and sediment from lake beds, egg cases from freshwater fleas, along with moss leaves and waterways, which were strong signs of freshwater ecosystems. Moreover, they also found evidence of small lakes, river channels, along with traces of evergreen, birch, and hardwood trees that indicated these sections of the land bridge might have had humid conditions. So these large swaths of marshy terrain on the Bering Land Bridge might have deterred certain large mammals from crossing. For context, some large mammal species who currently have no evidence of ever making the migration include the woolly rhino, the American camel, and short-faced bear. On the flip side, some mammal species who did make the migration include the Pleistocene bison, woolly mammoth, and other mastodons, along with species of ancient horses, wolves, and elk. Most scientists believe that human migration across the Bering Land Bridge dates back about 16,000 years ago. However, it's worth noting that new evidence suggests much earlier migrations might have occurred. It's thought that the Bering Land Bridge's tundra landscape lacked adequate resources for animals like Gigantopithecus to cross. And yet, despite new evidence of this marshy terrain, the vegetation species that were discovered still wouldn't have provided adequate food sources for Gigantopithecus, which likely relied on thick forests that were rich in bamboo and fruit. The large swaths of marshy, swampy terrain on the Bering Land Bridge might have posed significant obstacles for something the size of Gigantopithecus to successfully cross. However, if humans and the other larger aforementioned quadrupeds were able to get through, then why couldn't something like Gigantopithecus or other ancient apes, namely a potential Sasquatch ancestor, also find a way? For this to happen, though, I'd imagine it would probably require significant adaptations on their end to successfully make this journey. And as of now, there's just no evidence of such adaptations occurring, at least not yet. But if that does wind up being the case, could it explain things like the alleged correlation between Bigfoot and swampy habitat? As some of you may know, multiple Bigfoot sightings, some might even say the majority of them, do occur in or near swampy marshy areas. So just food for thought. So as of now, current evidence still upholds the belief that Gigantopithecus and perhaps other similar ape-like species did not or would be unable to cross the Bering Land Bridge. However, those who want to think otherwise definitely have room for speculation. Any key fossilized data that could potentially dictate this argument, for example, is likely still buried beneath the Bering Strait sea floor. Having said that, the theory stands. Humans likely got to North America by crossing the Bering Land Bridge. And with Bigfoot sightings still persisting to this day, if they're real, then their ancestors must have somehow followed suit. So whether it was Gigantopithecus, or perhaps an undiscovered part of our hominid family tree, the truth is still waiting to be unearthed.
Tech and innovation is now.
Thermal imaging technology has become a huge game changer in Bigfoot research. However, squatchers might face potential issues using these devices in the state of Oregon. After a recent bust, authorities in the state are cracking down on hunters using thermal imaging technology. And with many parts of Oregon being renowned Bigfoot hotspots, it's possible that misunderstandings could occur. The segment tonight will review the details behind Oregon's thermal imaging crackdown and why hunters aren't allowed to use these devices. And plus, tonight we will cover a few potential ways that squatchers in Oregon can therm out in the field safely and legally. The state of Oregon had made use of thermal imaging devices while hunting illegal a few years prior to the recent bust. Oregon is also one of 2 states with outright bans or restrictions on hunters using thermal imaging devices while hunting, with California being the other state. Following the decreasing lowering cost of thermal imaging devices, making them more accessible, the technology's ability to perceive heat images in the dark makes it easier to hunt at night with low light conditions. Oregon's law enforcement had a particularly pressing case in late 2024 when a group of hunters were using FLIR cameras to hunt in Clackamas County, which also includes sections of Mount Hood and Willamette National Forest. Oregon State Police served search warrants at 9 residencies between December 15th and 16th. They seized 13 thermal imaging devices, 1 rifle, and 4 deer carcasses. They further filed charges against the 9 individuals. In addition to the December arrests, Oregon F&W officials have reported increases in its illicit use of thermal optics. They reportedly received several complaints about hunters using thermal devices in the field. Fines for poaching in Oregon can reach up to $50,000. And if convicted, individuals can get jail time. Here's how the Oregon Hunters Association using the definition of ethical hunting and fair chase. Sportsmanlike and lawful taking of a wild animal in a manner that doesn't give the hunter an unfair advantage. Unfair meaning the animal should have a reasonable chance of escape. The Oregon F&W said hunting regulations are written to level playing field for all hunters while maintaining fair chase standards. As said previously, Many parts of Oregon are alleged Bigfoot hotspots. Bigfoot researchers using thermal devices in Oregon should take precautions with the recent crackdown in mind. We emailed Oregon State Police's Wildlife Division asking for tips and insights squatchers can use for thermal technology they can follow. However, they have not yet responded. Having said that, here are some precautions to consider following out in the field. As a reminder, this isn't legal advice, but this could potentially help squatchers, namely in Oregon, using thermal technology in a safe and legal manner. First and foremost, avoid hunting seasons and areas. It is best to conduct research during periods while in locations where hunting is not active, and if applicable, conduct field research on private property. Next, make sure to understand legal restrictions. The Oregon law prohibits using thermal imaging devices to hunt, locate, or scout wildlife for hunting purposes. While using the thermal imaging for non hunting activities, such as wildlife observation or research, it is generally permitted. Be sure to clearly define research intent. Please ensure that all activities involving thermal imaging are strictly for Bigfoot research and not associated with hunting. It is also wise to avoid bringing hunting caliber rifles, equipment, and attire akin to looking like a hunter. If necessary, please communicate with authorities and hunters, which can prevent potential misunderstandings and clarify research purposes. Laws and regulations can change. It's important to regularly review Oregon Department's Fish and Wildlife guidelines. It's a great way to stay informed on any updates regarding the use of thermal imaging devices. When squatching, you should always expect the unexpected to happen out in the field, where it's not uncommon to have run-ins with hunters and law enforcement. And during these instances, laws like Oregon's thermal imaging ban on hunters can potentially lead to misinterpretations at first glance. That's why squatchers should take the necessary steps to ensure that they are prepared for these type of interactions. So, if necessary, they can prove that what they're doing out in the field is both safe and legal.
News and updates are now.
We've got another round of updates from the segments we covered on previous episodes. You're getting the latest on California's state cryptid bill, a stunning development in Bigfoot coming to the NHL, plus some new content that dropped about the upcoming Bigfoot Live game. We have some updates on California Assembly Bill 666, which we previously covered in episode 13. The bill was introduced by Assemblyman Chris Rogers on February 14th, which seeks to make Bigfoot California's official state cryptid. Rogers expects Assembly Bill 666 to be up for committee discussion in the coming months. He anticipates only one committee hearing before it moves to the floor. From there, the California State Senate will decide if it advances. As of now, it does not appear the bill has gained any additional sponsors. A recent Daily Kos article posted a poll on Assembly Bill 666. The slim majority of voters, 51%, supported the idea. 7% opposed the bill, while 42% selected the "this is stupid" option. So technically, voters appear evenly split on the bill. The NHL's Utah Hockey Club is still trying to figure out its official team name, and unfortunately, it won't be the Yeti. Their initial attempt to trademark the nickname Utah Yeti was denied by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. They cited a likelihood of confusion with other companies and brands using the name, like Yeti Coolers, LLC. Utah HC has since narrowed its potential team name to 3 finalists: the Outlaws, Mammoth, and Utah HC. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office confirmed Utah HC secured extensions for Utah Mammoth and Utah Hockey Club. Outlaws was not granted an extension due to lack of support. Mammoth appears to be the new frontrunner, which has made progress in the federal patenting process. Fortunately, there's a silver lining. The mammoth is technically considered a cryptid, with stories of alleged sightings emerging from remote locations in Russia, Alaska, and northern Canada. The demo for Bigfoot Life is now available on Steam. Bigfoot Life is a simulator game that allows players to experience the day-to-day life of Bigfoot by completing various tasks and quests. The playable demo was released on March 24th along with the gameplay footage featured on Planet 47 Games' YouTube channel. The demo features a small map that offers a glimpse into Bigfoot Life's gameplay, allowing players to explore various features. Players can catch and eat other animals, forage for mushrooms and berries, build and upgrade shelters, and interact with the environment by breaking branches and scaring wildlife. They can also acquire unique skills like Bigfoot vision and enhanced speed. An official release date for Bigfoot Life has not been announced. While they're aiming for a late summer release, the developer at Planet 47 Games said this could change based on the volume and nature of player feedback. That does it for this round of segment updates. You can find more information in the video description. We'll try to do something like this whenever news pops up on any segments we previously covered.
Report Roundup is now.
Alrighty, this is our report roundup. If they're out there, it's our part of the show that updates you on the latest Bigfoot reports from major databases and across the internet. This week, we are covering a recent trail cam picture that's making the rounds, a potential trackway that were found in western New York, plus some Class A encounters from Massachusetts, Alaska, and even New Mexico. Coming from the Bigfoot Mapping Project, 2 sightings, first beginning with Massachusetts. This sighting happened on March 17th, 2025 in Worcester County, Massachusetts. The eyewitnesses say that they were driving on 495 past exit 48 when they saw a tall, black figure with quote-unquote 2 white things, presumably in its hand area, and that further the figure was standing in a power line clearing. They also mentioned they caught glimpses of this figure from 2 different angles. This next encounter happened on the early morning of March 16th, 2025 in northwest New Mexico. The eyewitness says they were driving home, mentioning it was very cold, about 26 degrees Fahrenheit, when they saw a figure walking on the side of the road. The eyewitness said it towered over wild grass, further saying that this was an area where no one walks, especially in freezing temperatures. They say the figure didn't seem like it was cold. It had a light brown color, and further they comment the figure didn't turn towards the witness when they passed in their car.
Right, moving on to the BFRO. We have one recent Class B report that shows photos of a potential trackway in Genesee County, New York. According to the report, these pictures were allegedly taken on December 6, 2024, near the town of Pembroke, which is about 24 miles east of Buffalo. According to the witness, he claims that he found these tracks while deer hunting with their nephew. The witness does clarify in the report that fresh snow had fallen on the tracks, which looked to have been about a few days old prior to discovery. He described them as large human-shaped feet and reportedly had a 6-foot stride. The witness claims he followed the tracks for over a mile until they went onto private property, and also mentions that they paralleled deer tracks. In his follow-up report, Matt Moneymaker says he believes the tracks definitely are not moose, which have no known populations in western New York. The report also includes pictures of actual moose tracks for comparison. One particularly interesting detail Moneymaker points out is how the tracks are in a straight line, which is synonymous with other credible trackway finds. Also worth noting, the trackway is close to both a power line and other waterways in the area.
Boise Bigfoot made it in our report roundup again, after posting this picture that's making the rounds. According to the post description, it allegedly shows a juvenile Sasquatch that was taken on a remote trail camera. The description claims it's not an escaped gorilla, and it appears the picture was taken at night. The picture shows a human-shaped figure that appears to be covered in black fur. It looks to be hunched over and has very long arms. The figure has a large head, and it seems to show facial features like eyes, nose, and a mouth. There is no additional information on when or where this photo was taken. It also does not show a timestamp or metadata. We ran a few reverse image searches that turned up nothing, and also ran it through various AI detection programs that produced mixed results. Let us know what you think this mysterious photo shows, or if you have any information on its backstory.
This next report comes from the Bigfoot subreddit. and describes a possible sighting in Alaska. The OP said they lived in Nenana, Alaska, and recalled an alleged encounter that happened in February, but did not mention the year it occurred. The OP said they returned to an old hunting spot and harvested 2 rabbits. They described seeing the black silhouette of a small man with hair that resembled dreadlocks. When it began rummaging through their bag, the OP said they shouted and got its attention. The figure turned towards the witness, who claimed it was covered in patches of long, stringy hair. The OP said they fired a warning shot, which caused the figure to flee. They described the figure moving downhill with incredible speed, like an Olympic sprinter that knew how to run. After returning to the bag, the OP claimed they found no tracks and noticed that their knife was missing. Well, that does it for this episode's report roundup. Remember, if they're out there, you'll hear about them. And who knows, maybe the next one happens somewhere near you.
The 359 is now.
And welcome to the 359. It's when we find something trending in the Bigfoot world, we have an open discussion on the topic, and we get the whole thing done in under 4 minutes. Here's what we've got in store. I recently ran a poll on the Bigfoot subreddit, which asked this question that was directed to anyone who participated or participates in squatching and field research. Which method do you think gets better results for experiencing or documenting potential Bigfoot activity? Active squatching or passive squatching? Now for context, active squatching refers to eliciting responses via howls, knocks, or call blasts, while passive squatching simply refers to hunkering down and staying quiet when out in the field. So just to reiterate one more time, I was basically asking if squatchers experienced more activity when they made potential Bigfoot sounds or when they just sat and listened, and a large majority of votes reported better results via the passive approach. It is worth noting I didn't get too many votes as of recording this segment. It was a relatively small sample size, which is why I thought it'd be grounds for a good 359 topic. Alright, so let's dive in. Which method do members of the Bigfoot Journal team think gets better results? Active or passive squatching? The countdown begins now.
I think a combination of both, because Mike, when we did that one private property in New Jersey, like we were out actually investigating, and I think we drew something back sitting on a deck, and that's when we started getting the activity. We were in central Pennsylvania one time doing an investigation, but it wasn't until we got back to the campsite and we were kind of hanging out by the campfire where you heard like wood knocks and like rocks. Well, I don't know if it were rocks, but something was flying through the trees. So I'm a big fan of just hunkering down and seeing what happens.
I've gotten 2 of my best pieces of potential audio using both methods. We were doing the active approach, we were doing call blasting when we got the sugar run howls in Allegheny National Forest. When we were in Catawissa, we got that one howl. We weren't even doing anything. We were literally there like a half hour when that thing just like ripped out of nowhere. I just feel like there's certain elements of the active approach, maybe depending on the distance. When you do vocals and things like that, I think you only have one shot, because I feel like more often than not, a squatch would probably know the difference between a human vocalizing and one of their own vocalizing.
When you are being real passive, you're in the woods, you're kind of just chilling at camp, you draw them in as they're being curious. You're not really going to get much evidence unless you have a thermal imager and you have the best shot that nobody else has got. But that's the only real evidence you're going to get, and that is very, very rare. When you're out there being active and investigating out there in the field, all of us can agree we're pretty successful with getting callbacks and audio evidence and whatnot. Regardless, in my opinion, that being active, and I think that's the more efficient way to investigate.
You know, when we're looking at passive investigations, we're not really getting a lot going on. I mean, sometimes some good or some bad, but it really depends on the region too. If you're going into hotspots that necessarily don't have a lot going on, or something that's just like, hey, you know, there's about maybe 5 or 6 experiences there, you know, you make 1 out of 5 chance. But if you're in a heavy hotspot where there's consistency, let's just say, you know, there's a lot of the time in the day where there's not a lot of activity, but maybe there's more activity at night. It's important to think about how you want to measure your resources out when you want to go and conduct research. At the end of the day, it's your opinion.
No, just to Chris's point also, it's like, if it's a new area for you, then yeah, you want to take more action than passive. You want to explore the area and, do the wood knocks, do the howls. I mean, I think sound blasting is better than, me doing a howl. They definitely know, you know what I mean? If you have a female with you, have them do some screams, because that'll get their attention too. But if you're in an area where you've had some activity, then yeah, maybe you could be a little more passive, or maybe not stray as far away from the camp to do your wood knocks or your whatever.
I think very high areas that a lot of researchers go to investigate. I think those areas are actually good to just go passive. If everything's quiet for a long period of time, throw out a couple hours here and there. But areas that have never been squatched before and you have a good feeling that they're in there, I would go in there very aggressive.
And I guess one of the other factors too is just the size of the terrain. If you're at the foot of like some vast wilderness that goes on for miles and miles, you'll probably approach that differently compared to maybe more like a contained area.
Ever since I've been more engaged, speaking with people one-on-one, a lot of the time they really concentrate on a specific place, whether it's small population or big, but they mostly focus on small territorial region. If you're looking in a place like the Wharton State Forest, where you're going to find millions of different resources and several millions of different patterns. There's been people I've interviewed on my show who have told me about their research and how they've went about it, and they've really looked at things so differently when they're out and about in a bigger territory, but in a smaller territory when they're finding things and looking and reviewing things, they have an ability to where it's like, hey, this action ain't so crazy, but hey, still.
No, but to Chris's point too, you got to know the territory and the area too, because you got the locals that are very protective of their area too, not just Bigfoot. But that's another thing, whether you should be passive or aggressive as far as your investigation.
As always, we'd love to hear your thoughts on what we discussed, and if you have any ideas for future topics. Otherwise, that wraps up this episode's 359. We hope you enjoyed this powwow and look forward to the next one.
Spotlight is now.
What's going on, everyone? We're back at it for another Bigfoot Spotlight, the part of our show where we highlight a few recent Bigfoot live streams, films, and events. In this episode, we're spotlighting a new documentary and 2 more upcoming conferences. So here we go. First up is a film, Bigfoot and Marty, a full movie and documentary about a Bigfoot poet. With all the sinkholes in northern New Jersey, I was able to watch this whole film on the commute home from work. My 2-hour commute.
Bigfoot blessing. May sun melt March frost on your body, make you spark and flash with dew light, as you sing in deep alder, shimmy a bald eagle to wing.
This documentary, spotlighting Marty Achatz's Bigfoot poetry, is by award-winning filmmaker Ronnie Ferguson. This film was actually really well done, considering it is a self-proclaimed no-budget film. Ronnie spotlighted Marty's poems throughout the film, while also filming the attendees and speakers at the 2021 Upper Peninsula Bigfoot Conference. Ken Gerhardt has a cameo in the movie, as well as Charlie Raymond, so if you're fans of those guys, you should check out what they have to say. Ronnie also spotlights Steve and Karen from Documenting the Unknown podcast, and their website, documentingtheunknown.com. If you get a chance to watch for yourself, let me know what you think of the film, and more importantly, the poetry.
June rain brush the gnats out of your gums. May barn owl not talon away your pet vole, wolf and coyote not gnaw your dead father's ulna.
Up next is the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Festival, happening Saturday, May 3rd in Townsend, Tennessee, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's being promoted as the ultimate legendary family reunion. There will be a kids zone, live music, food trucks, wrestling, a carver's tent, calling contest, and loads of unique vendors. The festival will also feature a Bigfoot 5K and fun run starting at 9 a.m. It's a 1-mile run that's inviting runners, walkers, and Bigfoot enthusiasts to join. You can get tickets for the run at bigfoot5k.com. For additional information, you can go to the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot 5K and Fun Run Facebook page. Now, back to the festival. The speaker stage will be held from 11 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Some of the notable names this year include Turtle Man, Adam Davies, Dr. Maria Meyer, and the Mountain Monsters. In addition to the calling contest, the festival will feature other performances like Big Tovin, Squatch, and the Lowbirds. Oh, and one more thing.
The entire gambit of the paranormal world seems to culminate right here at the Land Between the Lakes.
If you're in Townsend on Friday night, there'll be a screening of the movie Cryptid Expeditions, The Land Between the Lakes. The movie is free, open to the public, and starts at 8:30 p.m.
Mutilated in the exact same manner.
Also happening Saturday, May 3rd is the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. As always, it's being held at the Salt Fork Lodge and Conference Center in Salt Fork State Park, Ohio. There's a VIP dinner on Friday night at 5 p.m. On Saturday, the vendor area opens up at 10 a.m. And on Sunday, there's also going to be a speaker panel and town hall from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The lineup of speakers include Cliff Barackman, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Renee Holland, Shelley Covington, Montana, and Seth Breedlove. This first speaker is Renee Holland, who starts at 11 a.m. I was at last year's conference and will be back in 2025. I'm especially stoked that Mike and Tobi will be joining me this year. If you see us there, make sure you say hi. That wraps up this episode's Bigfoot Spotlight. You'll find the links to everything I covered in the video's description. If there's something that you'd like me to spotlight, shoot me a message or email with the details. Mike, take us out.
Well, that about does it for episode 16 of the Bigfoot Journal. But before we wrap things up, I just want to touch on a few things about our upcoming plans. Like we mentioned in episode 15, there's going to be a lot going on here this and next month, so I just want to do a quick recap. So for the rest of this month, I will be traveling the first 2 weeks of April, but I'm aiming to have the premiere of our new Deep Searches series launch either on Friday, April 18th or the 25th. Moving into the month of May, Chuck, Tobi, and myself will be attending the Ohio Bigfoot Conference on the weekend of May 3rd. So that means that month's first pre-recorded episode will either be Friday, May 9th or 16th. I will also be traveling Memorial Day weekend. With my Memorial Day weekend travel plans in mind, the first pre-recorded episode for the month of June will either be on the 6th or the 13th, one of those Fridays. After that, it should be business as usual. Keep in mind that these dates are subject to change, and between now and then, we'll try to work in at least 1 to 2 live streams and possibly a second Deep Searches episode. As always, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe here at Untold and the CARC. If you have questions, a story to share, or want the CARC to investigate your Bigfoot encounter, shoot us an email or drop us a line in the comments. For Chuck, Chris, and Tobi, I'm Mike Luci signing off. We appreciate each and every one of you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Program is distributed by the Untold Radio Network. All rights reserved.